Imagine you wake up tomorrow, and somehow, with total certainty, you know the exact date you're going to die. Not a guess, not a fear in the back of your mind, a fact as solid as your own birthday. March 14th, 40 years from now, or next spring, or 3 weeks from today. Most people's first instinct is horror. That sounds like the cruelest thing you could possibly know. But sit with it a little longer, and the question gets stranger than that. Would knowing actually ruin your life? Or is it possible that not knowing is the thing that's been quietly ruining it all along? Right now, you already know you're going to die. Everyone does. It's not a secret, it's just a fact you've learned to keep at arm's length, filed away somewhere you don't have to look at it directly. You know it the way you know there's a war happening somewhere on the news. Real, but distant enough that it doesn't touch your Tuesday. The date is the only thing missing. And it turns out that missing piece is doing a lot more work than you'd think. Psychologists have a name for what usually happens when people are forced to actually look at their own mortality instead of glancing past it. It's called mortality salience. And the research on it is strange because it doesn't just make people anxious. In carefully controlled studies, when people are reminded clearly and directly that they will die, something shifts. People report caring more about what actually matters to them. They get more generous, more honest, less interested in the small performances they normally waste energy on. Not because death stopped being scary, because suddenly there was a deadline. And deadlines have a brutal way of clarifying what's worth your time and what was never worth it in the first place. Now, push that further. Not a vague reminder that death exists somewhere out there, an actual date, a number on a calendar you could circle. What would you do differently, starting today, if you knew you had exactly 11,312 days left? Would you still spend 3 of them scrolling through a stranger's vacation photos, quietly resenting your own life? Would you still swallow the thing you've wanted to say to someone for years, telling yourself there's time? Here's the uncomfortable part. There already is a number. You just don't know what it is. The 11,312 days might be real. You've just been living as if the number doesn't exist, which lets you postpone things indefinitely, because indefinitely feels safer than definitely. A vague future is easy to keep pushing things into. A fixed one isn't. There's a thought experiment philosophers sometimes use to test this. Picture 2 people. One believes they'll live forever. The other knows precisely that they have 1 year left. Ask yourself honestly, which one is more likely to waste a Tuesday? Which one is more likely to call their mother back? Or finally end the relationship that's been quietly rotting for years?
Or say the thing out loud instead of rehearsing it in the shower for the 100th time? Immortality doesn't sound like a curse on the surface, but philosophers who've actually followed the logic through, thinkers like Bernard Williams, have argued that a life with no end might eventually become unbearable, not because it's too short, but because nothing in it would ever have to matter. Urgency is what gives a moment its weight. Take away the deadline, and you take away the reason to choose anything over anything else. So maybe the honest answer is this. Knowing your exact death date wouldn't ruin your life. It would just remove the one lie that's currently making your life bearable. The lie that you have more time than you're using. That's the trade. Right now, you get to feel safe because the number is hidden. But hidden numbers don't stop counting down. They just let you pretend the countdown isn't happening. You don't get to know your date. Nobody does. And honestly, most people wouldn't actually want to. But you already know one thing for certain. The same thing the date would only prove on paper. That the number is real. It is finite. And it is smaller today than it was yesterday. The question was never really, what would you do if you knew the date? The real question is why you're waiting for a date to start living like the number is already ticking down. Because it already is. It always has been. The only thing standing between you and the version of your life you keep postponing isn't more time. It's the willingness to stop pretending you have infinite amounts of it.
maybe that's the strange gift hiding underneath a terrifying question. Not a countdown clock, a permission slip. To stop waiting for some later version of your life to finally begin and start treating this one, the one you're already living in right now, as the only one you were ever going to get.